Sarah Martinez had always known she belonged in the sky. As a young girl growing up in a small Texas town, she would spend hours lying on her back in the dusty fields behind her family's modest home, watching planes trace silver lines across the endless blue canvas above. While other children played with dolls or video games, Sarah built model airplanes with meticulous care, studying every detail of their construction. Her father, Miguel, worked double shifts at the local auto repair shop to support their family of 5. Her mother, Rosa, cleaned houses for the wealthy families on the other side of town. Money was always tight, but Sarah's parents never let financial struggles dim their daughter's dreams. When Sarah announced at age 12 that she wanted to become a pilot, Miguel didn't laugh or tell her to be more realistic. Instead, he saved every spare dollar to buy her flying lessons for her 16th birthday. The first time Sarah took control of a small Cessna 172, something magical happened. The instructor, an old-timer named Captain James Burke, watched in amazement as this teenage girl handled the aircraft with natural grace. Her hands moved confidently across the controls, and she seemed to understand the language of flight instinctively. Captain Burke had trained hundreds of students over his 40-year career, but he had never seen anyone with Sarah's raw talent. During high school, Sarah worked weekends at the local diner to pay for additional flying hours. She studied aviation textbooks until late into the night, memorizing regulations, weather patterns, and aircraft specifications. Her grades in math and science were exceptional, but she struggled to fit in with her classmates. While they talked about movies and dating, Sarah's conversations always drifted back to aviation. Some students called her weird or obsessed, but Sarah didn't care. She had found her calling. The guidance counselor, Mrs. Henderson, tried to steer Sarah toward more practical career choices. She suggested nursing or teaching, explaining that the aviation industry was extremely competitive and dominated by men. Sarah listened politely but remained unmoved. She had already researched every detail about becoming a commercial pilot, from the required flight hours to the various certifications needed. Nothing would deter her from this path. After graduating as valedictorian, Sarah enrolled in a prestigious aviation program at a state university. The scholarship she received covered most of her tuition, but she still worked multiple part-time jobs to pay for living expenses and additional flight training. Her days began before dawn and ended well past midnight, but Sarah thrived on the challenge. She was often the only woman in her aviation classes, surrounded by male classmates who sometimes questioned whether she truly belonged there. One particularly difficult day during her sophomore year, Sarah faced her first major setback. During a complex navigation exercise, she made a calculation error that resulted in a minor but embarrassing deviation from her planned route. Several male classmates smirked and whispered among themselves about women not being cut out for precision flying. The instructor, Professor Williams, pulled her aside after class and suggested she might want to consider switching to a different major. That night, Sarah called her father from her dorm room, tears streaming down her face. Miguel listened patiently as she recounted the day's events and her instructor's discouraging words. When she finished, there was a long pause before her father spoke. He told her about the discrimination he had faced as a young Mexican-American trying to start his own business, and how people had told him he should be grateful for any job he could get. But he had persevered, and though he never achieved his dream of owning a large automotive empire, he had built a successful small business and earned the respect of his community. Miguel reminded Sarah that she had always been different from other children, not just in her dreams but in her determination to achieve them. He encouraged her to prove her doubters wrong, not through words but through actions. His unwavering faith in her abilities gave Sarah the strength she needed to continue. The next morning, Sarah returned to class with renewed determination. She threw herself into her studies with even greater intensity, spending extra hours in the flight simulator and seeking additional mentorship from Captain Burke, who had become a trusted advisor. She learned to ignore the whispers and sideways glances from some of her classmates and focused entirely on perfecting her skills. By her junior year, Sarah's performance in both classroom and practical flying exercises had become undeniable. She consistently scored among the top 3 students in her class and had accumulated more flight hours than many of her peers. Her landings were smooth and precise, her navigation skills were flawless, and her understanding of aircraft systems was comprehensive. Several professors began to take notice of her exceptional abilities. During her senior year, Representatives from various airlines visited the campus to recruit graduating students. Sarah dressed in her best professional attire and prepared thoroughly for each interview. She researched each company's history, fleet composition, and route networks. Her resume highlighted not only her academic achievements, but also her extensive flight experience and strong work ethic. However, the interview process proved challenging in unexpected ways. Some recruiters seemed surprised to meet a young Latina woman applying for pilot positions. Others asked inappropriate questions about her plans for marriage and children, suggesting that family obligations might interfere with the demanding schedule of commercial aviation. A few recruiters were openly skeptical about her ability to command respect from passengers and crew members, citing the importance of projecting authority in the cockpit. Despite these obstacles, Sarah remained professional and confident during every interview. She answered questions about aircraft systems with precision, discussed flight safety protocols with expertise, and demonstrated her passion for aviation through detailed knowledge of industry trends and regulations. When asked about her career goals, she spoke eloquently about her desire to ensure passenger safety while providing exceptional service. One recruiter from Skyline Airlines, Captain Robert Hayes, was particularly impressed by Sarah's interview performance. He had been flying commercially for over 20 years and had seen many promising young pilots come and go. Sarah's combination of technical knowledge, natural flying ability, and genuine dedication to aviation reminded him of the qualities that made truly exceptional pilots. After weeks of waiting, Sarah received her first job offer from a regional airline based in Denver. The position was entry-level, flying smaller aircraft on shorter routes, but it represented the first step toward her ultimate goal of becoming a major airline captain. The salary was modest, barely enough to cover her student loans and basic living expenses, but Sarah didn't hesitate to accept the offer. As graduation day approached, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The challenges she had faced had only strengthened her resolve and prepared her for the obstacles that undoubtedly lay ahead. She knew that breaking into the male-dominated world of commercial aviation would require her to prove herself again and again, but she was ready for the challenge. The sky that had called to her as a young girl was finally within reach, and nothing would stop her from answering that call. Sarah's first day at Mountain Air Regional in Denver began at 4 a.m. She had spent the previous evening laying out her crisp new uniform, checking and double-checking her flight bag, and reviewing the aircraft manual one more time. The reflection staring back at her from the bathroom mirror showed a confident young woman ready to take on the world. But inside, her stomach churned with nervous excitement. The airline's training facility buzzed with activity as new hires gathered for orientation. Sarah quickly noticed she was one of only 3 women among the 25 new pilots, and the only Latina. The other pilots, mostly men in their 20s and 30s, clustered in small groups sharing stories about their flight training experiences and previous jobs. Some had military backgrounds, others came from flight instruction or charter services. Sarah listened quietly, trying to get a sense of her new colleagues. During the introductory meeting, Chief Pilot David Morrison outlined the rigorous training program ahead. 6 weeks of intensive ground school followed by simulator training and supervised flights. The failure rate was high, he warned, and only pilots who demonstrated exceptional skill and professionalism would advance to regular flight duties. Sarah took detailed notes, determined to absorb every piece of information. The ground school phase proved challenging but manageable for Sarah. Her strong academic background served her well as instructors covered aircraft systems, weather interpretation, and company procedures. She studied late into each night, often finding herself alone in the training facility's library long after her classmates had gone home. Some of the male pilots occasionally invited her to join them for drinks after class, but Sarah politely declined, preferring to focus entirely on her studies. Her dedication didn't go unnoticed, but it also drew some unwanted attention. A few of her male colleagues began making comments about her seriousness, suggesting she was trying too hard to prove herself. One particularly vocal trainee, Jake Morrison, who happened to be the chief pilot's nephew, seemed to take special pleasure in questioning Sarah's presence in the program. He would make subtle remarks about affirmative action hires and wonder aloud whether the airline was lowering its standards to meet diversity quotas. Sarah's first real test came during emergency procedures training. The instructor, Captain Tom Bradley, was known for his tough standards and no-nonsense approach. He created realistic scenarios that tested pilots' ability to think quickly under pressure. When it was Sarah's turn to handle a simulated engine failure during takeoff, she methodically worked through the checklist, communicated clearly with air traffic control, and executed a textbook emergency landing. Captain Bradley nodded approvingly but offered no verbal praise. Jake, however, wasn't impressed. During the break, he loudly suggested that the scenario had been too easy and that Sarah had probably memorized the responses rather than truly understanding the principles involved. Several other trainees looked uncomfortable with his comments, but no one spoke up to defend Sarah. She felt her face flush with anger but forced herself to remain calm and professional. The simulator training phase brought new challenges. Sarah was paired with different co-pilots for various exercises, and she quickly learned that not all of them were comfortable taking direction from a woman. Some would question her decisions or hesitate to follow her commands during scenarios where she served as pilot in command. The instructors watched these interactions carefully, taking notes that would influence final evaluations. One particularly difficult session involved a complex weather scenario with multiple system failures. Sarah was assigned as captain with Jake as her co-pilot. From the moment they began their pre-flight briefing, Jake challenged nearly every decision she made. He questioned her weather interpretation, suggested alternative routes, and generally undermined her authority. Sarah maintained her composure and stuck to proper procedures, but the tension in the simulator was palpable. When the scenario began, Sarah demonstrated excellent judgment in navigating around severe thunderstorms while managing the aircraft's failing hydraulic system. She communicated clearly with air traffic control and coordinated effectively with the cabin crew. Despite Jake's continued resistance to her commands, she successfully landed the aircraft at an alternate airport. The instructor's evaluation noted her exceptional performance under pressure, but also documented the crew coordination challenges. After the session, Jake cornered Sarah in the hallway. His face was red with frustration, as he accused her of being too aggressive and unwilling to consider input from her crew members. He suggested that her attitude would create problems in real-world flying situations where teamwork was essential. Sarah listened calmly before responding that she was simply following the procedures they had all been taught, and that questioning the captain's authority during an emergency was dangerous and unprofessional. Their conversation was overheard by Captain Bradley, who had been walking past. He stopped and asked to speak with both pilots privately. In his office, he addressed the situation directly. He explained that effective crew resource management required all pilots to communicate openly while respecting the chain of command. He reminded Jake that undermining the captain's authority could lead to accidents, regardless of who was in the left seat. To Sarah, he offered advice about balancing assertiveness with diplomacy, explaining that successful captains knew how to maintain authority while keeping their crews comfortable and cooperative. The incident became a turning point for Sarah. She realized that technical competence alone wouldn't be enough to succeed in this environment. She needed to develop leadership skills that would earn respect from crews who might initially be skeptical of her authority. She began studying not just aircraft systems and procedures, but also management techniques and communication strategies. During her off hours, Sarah sought mentorship from Captain Linda Chen, one of the few female pilots at Mountain Air Regional who had advanced to captain. Linda had faced similar challenges during her own career and offered valuable insights about navigating the male-dominated aviation culture. She taught Sarah subtle techniques for establishing authority without appearing confrontational, and shared strategies for building rapport with resistant crew members. Linda also warned Sarah about the extra scrutiny she would face as a minority woman in aviation. Every mistake would be magnified, and she would need to consistently perform at a higher level than her male counterparts to receive the same recognition. This reality was frustrating but undeniable, and Sarah accepted it as part of the price for pursuing her dreams. As the training program neared its end, Sarah's confidence grew. Her simulator scores were consistently among the highest in her class, and she had learned to manage difficult personalities while maintaining her professionalism. The instructors began to take notice of her leadership potential, and several classmates who had initially been skeptical started seeking her help with challenging procedures. The final phase involved supervised flights with experienced captains. Sarah was nervous but excited to finally get back into a real aircraft after weeks of classroom and simulator training. Her first assigned captain was Robert Hayes, the recruiter who had originally hired her. He had specifically requested to fly with Sarah, curious to see how she had developed during training. Their first flight together was a short hop from Denver to Albuquerque in a regional jet carrying 53 passengers. Captain Hayes allowed Sarah to handle the takeoff and landing while he observed her performance. She executed both maneuvers flawlessly, demonstrating smooth control inputs and excellent situational awareness. During the cruise portion of the flight, they discussed various aspects of commercial aviation, from passenger service to career development. Captain Hayes was impressed not only by Sarah's flying skills, but also by her mature attitude and genuine passion for aviation. He could see that she had grown considerably during training and was developing the qualities necessary for long-term success in the industry. At the end of their 3-day trip, he recommended her for immediate advancement to unsupervised first officer duties. Sarah's training class graduation ceremony was a proud moment for her family. Miguel and Rosa had driven from Texas to watch their daughter receive her wings and officially become a commercial airline pilot. As Sarah walked across the stage to receive her certificate, she caught sight of Jake in the audience. His expression was unreadable, but he offered a grudging nod of acknowledgement. Not all of her classmates had passed the rigorous program, but Sarah had not only succeeded, she had excelled. Sarah's first month as a certified first officer brought a whirlwind of new experiences and challenges. She was assigned to fly regional routes throughout the western United States, working with different captains almost daily. Each pilot had their own style and expectations, and Sarah quickly learned to adapt her communication and crew coordination techniques to work effectively with various personalities. Her first captain as a qualified first officer was Marcus Thompson, a veteran pilot with over 15 years of experience. Marcus had a reputation for being thorough but fair, and he took his responsibility for training new first officers seriously. During their pre-flight briefing for a morning departure to Phoenix, he explained his expectations clearly. He wanted Sarah to speak up about any concerns, ask questions when uncertain, and maintain constant awareness of their aircraft's position and status. The Phoenix flight went smoothly, with Sarah handling radio communications and monitoring aircraft systems while Marcus flew. She demonstrated excellent knowledge of procedures and showed good judgment in her communications with air traffic control. During their layover, Marcus provided constructive feedback, praising her preparation and suggesting minor improvements in her briefing style. Sarah appreciated his mentoring approach and felt more confident about her abilities. However, not all of her early flying experiences were as positive. During her second week, Sarah was paired with Captain Richard Hartley, an older pilot known for his traditional views and resistance to change. From the moment they met, Sarah sensed his skepticism about her qualifications. He questioned her flight experience, asked pointed questions about her training scores, and seemed determined to find flaws in her performance. During their pre-flight inspection, Captain Hartley nitpicked every aspect of Sarah's checklist completion. He criticized her pace, questioned her system knowledge, and made several comments about the importance of thorough preparation in commercial aviation. Sarah maintained her professionalism, but felt increasingly frustrated by his condescending attitude. She wondered if a male first officer would receive the same level of scrutiny. The tension continued during their flight to Salt Lake City. Captain Hartley constantly interrupted Sarah's radio calls to offer corrections that were actually unnecessary. He questioned her reading of weather reports and second-guessed her fuel calculations despite their accuracy. When Sarah attempted to discuss the aircraft's performance characteristics during cruise flight, he dismissed her observations as irrelevant chatter. The situation reached a breaking point during their approach to Salt Lake City. Air traffic control issued a complex routing change that required quick coordination between the pilots. Sarah immediately began calculating the new course and updating their flight management system. But Captain Hartley stopped her and insisted on handling the changes himself. His intervention caused confusion and delayed their response to air traffic control, creating a potentially unsafe situation. After landing, Captain Hartley filed a report criticizing Sarah's performance and suggesting she needed additional training before flying regular passenger routes. He cited concerns about her communication skills and ability to handle complex situations. Sarah was devastated by the unfair evaluation, especially since other captains had praised her for the same skills that Hartley criticized. Chief Pilot Morrison called Sarah into his office the next morning to discuss the report. Sarah had spent the night preparing her response, reviewing the specific incidents mentioned and gathering evidence to support her side of the story. She presented her case calmly and professionally, explaining how Captain Hartley's interventions had actually created the problems he later criticized. Morrison listened carefully to Sarah's account and asked detailed questions about the flight. He had received similar complaints about Captain Hartley's training methods from other first officers, and Sarah's version of events aligned with patterns of behavior he had observed before. After reviewing the aircraft's data recorder and communications transcripts, Morrison concluded that Sarah had performed appropriately and that Hartley's report was unfounded. The incident served as a wake-up call for Sarah about the additional challenges she would face as a woman in aviation. She realized that some pilots would never accept her presence and would actively work to undermine her career. However, she also learned that the airline's management was generally fair and would investigate complaints thoroughly before taking action. To strengthen her position and build positive relationships, Sarah began volunteering for additional duties whenever possible. She offered to help with pilot recruiting events, participated in safety committees, and took on extra flights during busy periods. Her willingness to go above and beyond her basic responsibilities caught the attention of senior management and helped establish her reputation as a dedicated professional. One opportunity that proved particularly valuable was her involvement in the airline's new pilot mentorship program. Sarah was paired with Captain Elena Rodriguez, a Latina pilot who had broken several barriers during her own career. Elena had been the first woman captain at Mountain Air Regional and had faced many of the same challenges that Sarah was experiencing. Elena became not just a mentor but a role model for Sarah. She shared stories about her own early career struggles and the strategies she had used to overcome discrimination and skepticism. Most importantly, she helped Sarah understand that excellence was not just about flying skills but also about building relationships, demonstrating leadership, and contributing to the overall success of the airline. Under Elena's guidance, Sarah began to develop a more strategic approach to her career development. She identified the additional certifications and ratings that would make her more valuable to the airline, and she created a timeline for advancing to captain. Elena introduced her to other successful women in aviation and helped her build a network of supporters and advisors. Sarah's flying performance continued to improve with each month of experience. She became known for her meticulous preparation, excellent communication skills, and calm demeanor under pressure. Several captains specifically requested to fly with her, appreciating her professionalism and competence. Her reputation began to spread throughout the pilot group, earning respect from colleagues who had initially been skeptical. A significant test of Sarah's abilities came during a challenging flight from Denver to San Francisco. She was flying with Captain Mike Chen, Elena's husband, who was known for his high standards and analytical approach to aviation. The weather forecast showed severe turbulence and thunderstorms along their route, requiring careful planning and constant monitoring. During the pre-flight planning phase, Sarah impressed Captain Chen with her thorough analysis of weather patterns and alternative routing options. She had studied multiple forecast models and identified several contingency plans, depending on how the weather developed. Her preparation demonstrated the kind of strategic thinking that separated good pilots from great ones. The flight itself proved to be one of the most challenging Sarah had experienced. They encountered severe turbulence over the Rocky Mountains and had to deviate significantly from their planned route to avoid dangerous weather. Sarah managed communications with air traffic control while Captain Chen flew through the rough conditions, providing updates to the cabin crew and passengers about their status and expected arrival time. When they finally landed in San Francisco, over an hour behind schedule but safely, Captain Chen complimented Sarah on her performance. He noted her excellent communication skills, situational awareness, and ability to remain calm under pressure. His positive evaluation helped reinforce Sarah's growing reputation as a capable and reliable first officer. As Sarah completed her first year with Mountain Air Regional, she reflected on how much she had learned and grown. The challenges she had faced had made her stronger and more determined to succeed. She had proven to herself and others that she belonged in the cockpit, and she was ready to take the next steps in her aviation career. The transformation from uncertain rookie to confident professional had not been easy. But Sarah had persevered through every obstacle. She had learned to navigate office politics, build important relationships, and maintain her integrity while adapting to a challenging work environment. Most importantly, she had never compromised her commitment to safety and professionalism, the qualities that would define her entire career. Looking ahead, Sarah set her sights on the next milestone, upgrading to captain. She knew the challenges would only intensify as she sought to command her own aircraft, but she felt prepared for whatever lay ahead. The little girl who had dreamed of flying while lying in Texas fields had become a professional pilot, and her journey was just beginning. After 18 months as a first officer, Sarah had accumulated enough flight hours and experience to begin thinking about her next career move. The airline industry was expanding, and several major carriers were actively recruiting experienced regional pilots. Sarah found herself at a crossroads, deciding whether to pursue captain upgrade at Mountain Air, regional, or seek opportunities with a larger airline, flying bigger aircraft on longer routes. The decision became more pressing when she received a call from Captain Hayes, who had left Mountain Air Regional 6 months earlier to join Transcontinental Airways, one of the nation's largest carriers. He was now a training captain at their hub in Chicago and had recommended Sarah for their pilot recruitment program. The opportunity was tempting. Transcontinental flew wide-body aircraft to international destinations, offered significantly higher pay, and provided better career advancement prospects. However, accepting the position would mean starting over as a junior first officer at the bottom of a much larger seniority list. At Mountain Air Regional, Sarah was nearing the top of the first officer list and could expect a captain upgrade within the next year. The choice represented a classic aviation career dilemma: immediate advancement at a smaller carrier versus long-term potential at a major airline. Sarah discussed the decision with Elena, who had faced a similar choice earlier in her career. Elena explained that while major airline positions offered better long-term prospects, the transition could be challenging. The training would be more intensive, the operating environment more complex, and the competition for advancement much fiercer. She encouraged Sarah to carefully consider her personal goals and risk tolerance before making such a significant career move. After weeks of deliberation, Sarah decided to pursue the opportunity with Transcontinental Airways. She reasoned that the experience of flying larger aircraft and serving international routes would make her a more well-rounded pilot. The financial benefits would also help her pay off student loans more quickly and provide better security for her future. The interview process at Transcontinental was rigorous and comprehensive. Sarah faced a panel of senior pilots and managers who tested her technical knowledge, decision-making abilities, and leadership potential. The interviews included psychological evaluations, simulator assessments, and extensive background checks. The company's standards were notoriously high, and many qualified candidates were rejected for minor deficiencies. During her simulator evaluation, Sarah was presented with complex emergency scenarios that tested her ability to manage multiple system failures while coordinating with air traffic control and cabin crew. The evaluator deliberately introduced stress factors, including time pressure and incomplete information, to assess her performance under adverse conditions. Sarah drew upon her regional airline experience to remain calm and methodical, working through each problem systematically. One particularly challenging scenario involved a simulated engine failure during takeoff from a short runway in mountainous terrain. Sarah had to quickly assess the aircraft's performance capabilities, make critical decisions about continuing the takeoff or aborting, and execute precise flying techniques to ensure passenger safety. Her smooth handling of the emergency impressed the evaluators and demonstrated the high level of skill she had developed during her regional airline career. The psychological evaluation proved equally demanding. A team of aviation psychologists assessed Sarah's personality traits, stress management capabilities, and interpersonal skills. They were particularly interested in her experiences as a minority woman in aviation and how she had handled discrimination in challenging situations. Sarah answered their questions honestly, describing both the obstacles she had faced and the strategies she had developed to overcome them. 3 weeks after completing the interview process, Sarah received a phone call offering her a position as a first officer on Transcontinental's Boeing 737 fleet. The starting salary was nearly double what she earned at Mountain Air Regional, and the benefits package included excellent health insurance, retirement contributions, and travel privileges. She accepted the offer immediately and began preparing for another intensive training program. Her last day at Mountain Air Regional was bittersweet. Sarah had formed strong friendships with many of her colleagues and felt genuine sadness about leaving the close-knit team that had supported her early career development. Elena organized a farewell gathering where pilots shared stories about flying with Sarah and wished her success in her new position. Several mentioned that she had changed their perceptions about women in aviation through her professionalism and competence. Chief, Pilot Morrison presented Sarah with a letter of recommendation that praised her exceptional performance and predicted great success in her future endeavors. He mentioned that Mountain Air Regional would always welcome her back and encouraged her to stay in touch as her career progressed. The genuine warmth and respect from her colleagues validated Sarah's decision to pursue new challenges. Training at Transcontinental Airways proved to be the most demanding educational experience of Sarah's career. The ground school covered complex aircraft systems, international flight procedures, and company policies for one of the world's largest airlines. The Boeing 737, while smaller than wide-body aircraft, was significantly more sophisticated than the regional jets Sarah had been flying. Its advanced avionics, automated systems, and performance capabilities required extensive study and practice. Sarah found herself once again among a small minority of women in her training class. Of the 24 new hires, only 3 were female, and Sarah was the only Latina. The other trainees came from diverse backgrounds: former military pilots, regional airline veterans, and a few international pilots seeking opportunities in the United States. The competition was intense, as everyone understood that failure to complete training successfully would end their careers with Transcontinental. The simulator training phase introduced Sarah to the complexities of flying into major airports with heavy traffic, challenging weather, and strict noise abatement procedures. She learned to operate in controlled airspace where precise navigation and communication were essential for safety. The training scenarios included international flights with different regulatory requirements, emergency diversions to unfamiliar airports, and coordination with multiple air traffic control agencies. Her first training partner was David Kim, a former Air Force pilot with extensive experience in fighter aircraft. David was initially skeptical about civilian-trained pilots, particularly women, but Sarah's competence quickly earned his respect. They worked well together during complex scenarios, with Sarah's systematic approach complementing David's aggressive military-style decision-making. Their successful partnership demonstrated that diverse backgrounds and perspectives could enhance flight safety through better crew resource management. One of the most challenging aspects of training was learning to operate in Transcontinental's highly structured environment. The airline had detailed procedures for every aspect of flight operations, from pre-flight planning to post-flight reporting. Sarah had to master new computer systems, communication protocols, and paperwork requirements while simultaneously learning to fly a new aircraft type. The workload was overwhelming at times, but her experience at Mountain Air Regional had taught her effective study, techniques, and time management skills. The training culminated in a comprehensive evaluation that included both technical flying skills and knowledge of company procedures. Sarah's check ride was conducted by Captain Jennifer Walsh, a senior training pilot known for her exacting standards. The evaluation included normal and emergency procedures, with emphasis on decision-making, communication, and crew coordination. Sarah performed flawlessly, demonstrating the technical competence and professional maturity that Transcontinental demanded from its pilots. Upon completion of training, Sarah was assigned to Transcontinental's Chicago hub and began flying domestic routes throughout the United States. Her first captain was Thomas Anderson, a 20-year veteran who had flown everything from small regional aircraft to international wide bodies. Captain Anderson had a reputation for being demanding but fair, and he took his responsibility for developing new first officers seriously. Their first trip together included flights to Los Angeles, Seattle, and Phoenix over a 4-day period. Captain Anderson observed Sarah's performance carefully, providing feedback and guidance while allowing her to develop confidence in the new environment. He was impressed by her preparation, communication skills, and ability to adapt quickly to different airports and operating conditions. During their layover in Los Angeles, Captain Anderson and Sarah discussed career development strategies at major airlines. He explained the importance of building a strong professional reputation, pursuing additional qualifications, and maintaining excellent safety records. He also warned her about the political dynamics within large corporations and the need to balance ambition with patience in a seniority-based system. As Sarah settled into her new role at Transcontinental Airways, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had successfully transitioned from a small regional airline to one of the industry's major players, proving her ability to adapt and excel in increasingly challenging environments. The little girl who had dreamed of flying was now operating sophisticated aircraft for an internationally respected airline. But she knew her journey was far from over. 3 years into her career at Transcontinental Airways, Sarah had established herself as one of the most reliable and competent first officers in the Chicago base. Her performance evaluations consistently ranked in the top tier, and several senior captains specifically requested to fly with her on challenging routes. However, despite her excellent record, Sarah began to notice subtle barriers that seemed to slow her career progression compared to her male counterparts. The most frustrating aspect was watching less experienced male pilots receive preferential treatment for premium assignments and training opportunities. When Transcontinental announced openings for international routes flying to Europe and Asia, Sarah submitted her application immediately. She had the required experience, language skills, and exemplary safety record, but the selection seemed to favor pilots with military backgrounds or personal connections within the company. The breaking point came during a crew meeting where Captain William Sterling, the chief pilot for international operations, discussed upcoming expansion plans. When Sarah approached him afterward to inquire about international opportunities, his response was dismissive and condescending. He suggested that international flying required a certain type of authority and presence that passengers expected from their pilots, implying that Sarah didn't fit the traditional image of an airline captain. Sarah's anger was tempered by her growing wisdom about navigating corporate politics. Instead of confronting Captain Sterling directly, she began documenting instances of apparent discrimination and building relationships with sympathetic managers and pilots. She also reached out to Elena, who had since been promoted to captain at Mountain Air Regional, for advice on handling the situation. Elena connected Sarah with the Organization for Women in Aviation, a professional group that provided networking opportunities and advocacy for female pilots. Through this organization, Sarah learned that her experiences were unfortunately common throughout the industry. Many talented women faced similar obstacles despite their qualifications and performance records. The organization's president, Captain Margaret Chen, was a trailblazing pilot who had broken numerous barriers during her 30-year career. She advised Sarah to focus on building an unassailable record of excellence while strategically positioning herself for advancement opportunities. Captain Chen also introduced Sarah to a network of successful women in aviation who could provide mentorship and support. One of these connections proved particularly valuable. Captain Lisa Rodriguez was Transcontinental's highest-ranking female pilot and served on the company's Diversity and Inclusion Committee. She had heard about Sarah's excellent reputation and agreed to meet for coffee during a layover in Denver. Their conversation opened Sarah's eyes to the behind-the-scenes dynamics that influence career advancement at major airlines. Captain Rodriguez explained that while overt discrimination was rare in the modern aviation industry, unconscious bias still created significant obstacles for women and minorities. She encouraged Sarah to become more visible within the company by volunteering for committees, participating in recruitment events, and seeking leadership roles in pilot organizations. Most importantly, she advised Sarah to apply for captain upgrade as soon as she became eligible, regardless of whether she felt completely ready. The opportunity came sooner than expected when Transcontinental announced an accelerated hiring program due to industry growth and upcoming retirements. The company needed to upgrade qualified first officers to captain positions more quickly than usual, creating openings for pilots with less seniority than traditionally required. Sarah met all the technical requirements and had accumulated the necessary flight hours, but she would be competing against pilots with more experience and stronger internal networks. The captain upgrade process at Transcontinental was notoriously rigorous, with a failure rate exceeding 30%. Candidates underwent extensive ground school, simulator training, and psychological evaluation before facing a comprehensive check ride with senior training captains. The training covered everything from advanced aircraft systems to crew resource management and emergency procedures. Sarah threw herself into preparation with characteristic intensity. She studied technical manuals during every spare moment, practiced procedures in her home flight simulator, and sought advice from experienced captains. She also worked with a professional coach to improve her presentation skills and leadership presence, knowing that her performance would be scrutinized more critically than her male counterparts. The ground school phase proved challenging but manageable. Sarah's technical knowledge was comprehensive, and her years of experience had given her deep understanding of aircraft systems and operational procedures. However, she noticed that some instructors seemed surprised by her presence in the captain upgrade program, occasionally making comments about the changing demographics of airline pilots. The real test came during simulator training, where candidates faced increasingly complex scenarios designed to evaluate their decision-making abilities. Under pressure, Sarah was paired with various training partners, some of whom were supportive while others seemed determined to test her resolve. The scenarios included multiple system failures, severe weather encounters, and medical emergencies that required quick thinking and decisive leadership. During one particularly challenging session, Sarah found herself managing a simulated engine fire during takeoff, while dealing with a first officer who deliberately provided incorrect information to test her situational awareness. She had to quickly identify the unreliable data, take control of the situation, and execute emergency procedures while maintaining clear communication with air traffic control and the cabin crew. Her calm, methodical approach impressed the evaluators and demonstrated the leadership qualities necessary for command. The psychological evaluation focused heavily on leadership, style, and ability to command respect from diverse crew members. Sarah was presented with hypothetical scenarios involving conflicts with subordinates, passenger complaints, and pressure from management to compromise safety standards. Her responses reflected the wisdom gained from years of navigating challenging interpersonal dynamics while maintaining her professional integrity. One scenario particularly tested her resolve. The evaluator described a situation where a senior flight attendant with many years of experience questioned her authority in front of passengers, suggesting that such a young woman couldn't possibly be qualified to command a commercial aircraft. Sarah's response demonstrated both firmness and diplomacy, explaining how she would address the situation privately while maintaining crew unity and passenger confidence. The final phase of training involved supervised flights with check captains who evaluated every aspect of her performance. Sarah's first supervised flight was a challenging route from Chicago to Denver during severe weather conditions. Her assigned check captain was Richard Hayes, no relation to Robert Hayes who had recruited her, and he was known for his exacting standards and traditional views about airline operations. Captain Hayes made his skepticism apparent from their first meeting. He questioned Sarah's experience level, suggested that the airline was rushing her upgrade for political reasons, and expressed doubt about her ability to handle the responsibilities of command. His attitude created additional stress during what was already an extremely high-pressure evaluation period. Despite the hostile environment, Sarah maintained her professionalism and focused on demonstrating her capabilities. During the pre-flight briefing, she thoroughly reviewed weather conditions, alternate airports, and fuel requirements. Her planning was meticulous, and she clearly communicated her decisions to the crew. When Captain Hayes attempted to challenge her fuel calculations, Sarah calmly explained her reasoning and showed the backup documentation supporting her numbers. The flight itself proved to be one of the most challenging Sarah had ever experienced. Severe thunderstorms forced multiple route deviations, air traffic control issued complex clearances, and turbulence made passenger service difficult. Throughout the 4-hour flight, Sarah demonstrated excellent judgment in her weather decisions, clear communication with all parties, and effective leadership of her crew. The real test came during their approach to Denver, where rapidly changing winds and heavy precipitation created challenging landing conditions. Sarah had to make split-second decisions about continuing the approach versus executing a missed approach and trying again. She carefully monitored the aircraft's performance, wind conditions, and runway reports before making a smooth landing that demonstrated both skill and good judgment. After the flight, Captain Hayes grudgingly admitted that Sarah had performed well under difficult conditions. His evaluation noted several areas for improvement, as was typical for upgrade candidates, but acknowledged her technical competence and decision-making abilities. More importantly, he recommended that she continue in the program rather than be eliminated, which had been a real possibility given his initial skepticism. Sarah's final check ride was scheduled with Captain Margaret Thompson, one of Transcontinental's most respected training pilots. Captain Thompson had a reputation for fairness and thoroughness, and her evaluations carried significant weight with management. The check ride would include both normal and emergency procedures, with particular emphasis on crew resource management and decision-making under pressure. The night before her check ride, Sarah spoke with her parents who had supported her dreams from the beginning. Miguel reminded her of all the obstacles she had already overcome and expressed complete confidence in her abilities. Rosa offered prayers and encouragement, telling Sarah that she had already made the family proud regardless of the outcome. Their unwavering support gave Sarah the emotional strength she needed for the final challenge. The check ride began at dawn with a comprehensive oral examination covering aircraft systems, company procedures, and federal regulations. Captain Thompson's questions were thorough but fair, and Sarah's answers demonstrated deep understanding of all aspects of commercial aviation. The simulator portion included routine operations as well as emergency scenarios, each designed to evaluate specific aspects of her piloting skills and leadership abilities. The climactic moment came when Captain Thompson simulated a complete electrical failure at night in mountainous terrain. Sarah had to quickly assess their situation, declare an emergency with air traffic control, coordinate with the cabin crew to prepare passengers, and execute a demanding approach using backup instruments. Her performance was flawless, demonstrating the technical skill and cool decision-making that defined exceptional airline captains. After 4 hours of intensive evaluation, Captain Thompson concluded the check ride and asked Sarah to wait in the briefing room while she completed her paperwork. The 30-minute wait felt like hours as Sarah reviewed her performance and wondered whether she had done enough to pass. When Captain Thompson finally returned, her expression was serious but not unfriendly. Captain Thompson's evaluation was comprehensive and honest. She noted areas where Sarah could continue to develop her skills but praised her technical competence, decision-making abilities, and leadership potential. Most importantly, she recommended Sarah for promotion to captain, making her one of the youngest pilots ever to achieve that rank at Transcontinental Airways. The news was overwhelming, and Sarah felt tears of joy and relief streaming down her face. All the years of hard work, discrimination, and self-doubt had led to this moment. She had not only proven her capabilities to the airline, but had also shattered another barrier for women in aviation. The little girl from Texas who had dreamed of flying had become one of the most respected pilots in the industry. The gold captain's stripes on Sarah's uniform shoulders represented more than just a promotion. They symbolized years of perseverance, countless hours of preparation, and the breaking of barriers that many believed were insurmountable. As she walked through Chicago O'Hare International Airport on her first day as Captain Martinez, she noticed the reactions of passengers and crew members who still seemed surprised to see a young Latina woman in command of a commercial aircraft. Her first assignment as captain was a domestic route from Chicago to Miami, flying a Boeing 737 with 150 passengers aboard. The crew consisted of First Officer Kevin Walsh, an experienced pilot with 8 years at Transcontinental, and 3 flight attendants led by Senior Flight Attendant Patricia Holmes, who had been with the airline for over 2 decades. Sarah knew that establishing her authority while building positive working relationships would be crucial for long-term success. During the pre-flight briefing, Sarah noticed First Officer Walsh's initial hesitation when she outlined their flight plan and weather considerations. His body language suggested skepticism about taking direction from someone significantly younger and less experienced than himself. However, Sarah's thorough preparation and clear communication style gradually earned his attention and respect. She encouraged questions and input while making it clear that final decisions rested with her as captain. The flight to Miami proceeded smoothly, with Sarah demonstrating the confident leadership style she had developed over years of overcoming doubts and challenges. She communicated clearly with air traffic control, made timely decisions about route changes due to weather, and maintained awareness of all aspects of the flight operation. First Officer Walsh's initial reservations disappeared as he observed her competent handling of various situations throughout the 4-hour flight. During their layover in Miami, several crew members approached Sarah to congratulate her on the smooth flight and professional demeanor. Patricia Holmes, who had initially been concerned about flying with such a young captain, admitted that Sarah's performance had exceeded her expectations. These early positive experiences helped establish Sarah's reputation within the pilot and flight attendant communities. However, not all of Sarah's experiences as a new captain were positive. During her 3rd week in command, she encountered Captain William Sterling, the chief pilot who had previously dismissed her international aspirations. Sterling was deadheading to Los Angeles on Sarah's flight and made several pointed comments about the airline's diversity initiatives and whether they were compromising safety standards. His remarks were clearly intended to undermine Sarah's confidence and authority. Sarah handled the situation with characteristic grace and professionalism. She acknowledged Sterling's concerns about safety, while making it clear that her promotion was based entirely on merit and performance. She refrained from engaging in confrontational discussion, but ensured that her crew understood her commitment to maintaining the highest safety standards. Her measured response actually strengthened her standing with the flight attendants, who appreciated her mature handling of a difficult situation. Word of the incident reached Captain Lisa Rodriguez, who had become an important mentor for Sarah. Rodriguez advised her to document such encounters and continue focusing on building an excellent operational record. She also warned that some senior pilots would continue to test Sarah's resolve, hoping to provoke reactions that could be used to question her leadership abilities. As Sarah gained experience in command, her confidence grew and her leadership style evolved. She learned to balance authority with approachability, making decisions firmly while remaining open to input from her crew. Her flights consistently operated on time with excellent safety records, and passenger feedback about her announcements and overall flight experience was overwhelmingly positive. 6 months into her captaincy, Sarah faced her most significant challenge yet. During a routine flight from Chicago to Los Angeles, the aircraft experienced a serious hydraulic system failure that required immediate attention and careful decision-making. The failure occurred over the Rocky Mountains far from suitable alternate airports and created the potential for a genuine emergency situation. Sarah's response to the emergency demonstrated the qualities that had carried her through every previous challenge. She remained calm while assessing the situation, communicated clearly with air traffic control to declare an emergency, and coordinated with the cabin crew to prepare passengers for a possible difficult landing. Her systematic approach to problem-solving and clear communication helped maintain crew confidence during a stressful situation. Working with First Officer Walsh, Sarah reviewed the aircraft's emergency procedures and determined that they could continue to Los Angeles using backup systems. However, the landing would require precise flying technique and careful coordination between the pilots. She briefed the cabin crew on emergency procedures while maintaining calm and professional communication with the 150 passengers aboard. The approach and landing at Los Angeles International Airport showcased Sarah's exceptional flying skills. Despite the challenging conditions created by the hydraulic failure, she executed a smooth touchdown that demonstrated both technical competence and cool decision-making under pressure. Emergency vehicles were standing by as a precaution, but the landing was so smooth that many passengers were unaware of the severity of the situation. The incident generated significant attention within transcontinental airways and the broader aviation community. Sarah's handling of the emergency was cited as an example of excellent crew resource management and decision-making under pressure. The airline's safety department used her performance as a case study for training other pilots, and aviation publications wrote articles about her calm and professional response to the emergency. More importantly, the incident changed perceptions about Sarah's capabilities among some of her harshest critics. Pilots who had previously questioned her qualifications began to acknowledge her exceptional skills and leadership abilities. Captain Sterling, who had been so dismissive earlier, grudgingly admitted that her performance during the emergency had been exemplary. Sarah's growing reputation for excellence led to new opportunities within Transcontinental Airways. She was selected to participate in the Airline Safety Committee, where her insights about crew resource management and emergency procedures were valued by senior management. She also began mentoring new first officers, particularly women and minorities who faced similar challenges to those she had experienced. One of her mentees was Jessica Chen, a young Chinese-American pilot who had recently joined Transcontinental from a regional airline. Jessica faced some of the same skepticism and discrimination that Sarah had encountered, and Sarah took special interest in helping her navigate the corporate culture. Their relationship reminded Sarah of the importance of supporting other women in aviation and breaking down barriers for future generations. Sarah's success as captain also brought increased scrutiny and pressure. Every decision she made was analyzed more carefully than those of her male counterparts, and any mistakes were amplified by critics who remained skeptical about women in leadership positions. However, her consistently excellent performance record made it difficult for detractors to find legitimate grounds for criticism. The financial rewards of captaincy allowed Sarah to achieve personal goals that had seemed impossible during her early career. She was able to pay off her student loans completely and purchase a home near the airport. More importantly, she could now provide financial support to her parents who had sacrificed so much to help her pursue her aviation dreams. During a visit home to Texas, Sarah spoke at her old high school about pursuing careers in aviation. She encouraged young women to consider pilot training and emphasized that success required dedication, persistence, and unwavering commitment to excellence. Several students approached her afterward with serious questions about aviation careers, and Sarah established a scholarship fund to help promising candidates pursue flight training. As Sarah approached her first anniversary as captain, she reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought her to this point. The challenges she had faced had made her stronger and more determined, while the support of mentors and allies had provided crucial guidance during difficult times. She had proven that excellence knew no gender or ethnic boundaries, and her success was opening doors for others who shared similar dreams. Looking ahead, Sarah set new goals for her career and personal development. She wanted to pursue additional ratings that would qualify her for international routes, continue her involvement in pilot training and safety programs, and expand her mentorship activities. Most importantly, she remained committed to proving that her success was not an anomaly, but a preview of the future of aviation. 5 years after her promotion to captain, Sarah Martinez had become one of Transcontinental Airways' most respected and accomplished pilots. Her safety record was impeccable, her operational performance consistently excellent, and her leadership abilities had earned recognition throughout the industry. However, her most significant achievement was the quiet revolution she had sparked simply by excelling in her chosen profession. The transformation was evident in the increasing number of women and minorities entering Transcontinental's pilot training programs. Young women who had once believed commercial aviation was closed to them now saw Captain Martinez as proof that their dreams were achievable. The airline's recruiting department reported a significant increase in applications from female candidates, many of whom specifically mentioned Sarah as their inspiration for pursuing aviation careers. Sarah's influence extended beyond recruitment into the day-to-day culture of the airline. Pilots who had once made casual remarks about women's capabilities in the cockpit found themselves reconsidering their assumptions. Her consistent professionalism and exceptional performance had gradually changed minds and opened conversations about diversity and inclusion that would have been impossible just a few years earlier. One of the most meaningful moments in Sarah's career came when she was selected to captain Transcontinental's inaugural flight to Barcelona, marking the airline's expansion into the European market. The choice was both a recognition of her exceptional abilities and a symbolic statement about the changing face of commercial aviation. As she walked through the terminal wearing her captain's uniform, Sarah noticed young girls pointing and whispering excitedly to their parents about the female pilot. The flight to Barcelona was flawless, showcasing not only Sarah's technical skills, but also her ability to represent Transcontinental Airways on the international stage. Spanish and American dignitaries were aboard for the ceremonial flight, and Sarah's multilingual abilities and cultural sensitivity impressed everyone present. The successful launch of the new route led to additional international opportunities and established Sarah as one of the airline's premier captains. During the return flight from Barcelona, Sarah reflected on how far she had traveled from that small Texas town where her dreams had first taken root. The girl who had been told that aviation was not for people like her had just commanded an international flight for one of the world's largest airlines. Yet she knew that her personal success was meaningful only if it opened doors for others to follow. Back in Chicago, Sarah expanded her mentorship activities and became increasingly involved in industry organizations promoting diversity in aviation. She served on panels at aviation conferences, spoke at universities and high schools, and worked with organizations dedicated to encouraging underrepresented groups to pursue STEM careers. Her message was always the same. Excellence recognizes no boundaries, and persistence can overcome any obstacle. One of her most impactful initiatives was the establishment of a flight training scholarship program specifically for young women and minorities. Working with aviation schools across the country, Sarah helped identify promising candidates who might not otherwise have the financial resources to pursue pilot training. The program provided not just funding, but also mentorship and career guidance to help recipients navigate the challenges of breaking into commercial aviation. Jessica Chen, the young pilot Sarah had mentored, became one of the program's greatest success stories. Under Sarah's guidance, Jessica had overcome initial struggles and was now herself approaching captain upgrade. Their relationship demonstrated the power of mentorship and the importance of experienced pilots supporting the next generation of aviators. Sarah's reputation for excellence also brought opportunities outside of daily flight operations. She was selected to participate in Transcontinental's Safety Review Board, where her insights about human factors and crew resource management helped shape training programs and operational procedures. Her recommendations were valued not just because of her technical knowledge, but because of her unique perspective. As someone who had faced and overcome significant challenges, the airline industry began taking notice of Sarah's contributions beyond Transcontinental Airways. She received invitations to speak at international aviation conferences, where her presentations about leadership and diversity drew standing ovations. Aviation publications featured articles about her career and its impact on the industry, helping to spread her story to pilots and aviation professionals worldwide. Recognition came in various forms, including prestigious awards from pilot organizations and industry groups. However, the accolades that meant most to Sarah were the thank you letters from young women who had been inspired by her example to pursue their own aviation dreams. These personal messages reminded her why her success was important beyond her individual achievement. One particularly moving letter came from Maria Gonzalez, a high school student from East Los Angeles who had decided to pursue pilot training after hearing Sarah speak at her school. Maria wrote about how seeing someone who looked like her commanding commercial aircraft had changed her perception of what was possible. She was working multiple jobs to save money for flight lessons and planned to apply for Sarah's scholarship program. Sarah made a point of staying connected with scholarship recipients and other young women entering aviation. She organized informal gatherings where aspiring pilots could ask questions, share experiences, and build supportive networks. These sessions often took place during layovers in various cities, turning airport conference rooms into impromptu classrooms and support groups. The ripple effects of Sarah's success extended to her family as well. Miguel had expanded his auto repair business and now employed several mechanics, partly inspired by his daughter's example of breaking through barriers. Rosa had returned to school to become a certified nursing assistant, pursuing her own delayed dreams with encouragement from Sarah's example. The entire Martinez family had been transformed by the journey that began with a young girl's fascination with airplanes. As Sarah approached her 10th anniversary as a commercial pilot, Transcontinental Airways offered her a position in management, overseeing pilot training and development. The role would mean leaving active flying to focus on shaping the next generation of pilots and improving training programs. It was a prestigious opportunity that would allow her to influence aviation safety and education on a much broader scale. The decision was difficult because flying remained Sarah's greatest passion. However, she recognized that accepting the management position would allow her to multiply her impact exponentially. In her new role, she could ensure that training programs were inclusive and supportive of all pilots, regardless of their background. She could also work to eliminate the subtle barriers and biases that still made aviation careers more challenging for women and minorities. Sarah's acceptance of the management position marked another milestone in her remarkable career. The announcement was celebrated throughout the aviation industry, with many noting that her appointment represented a significant step forward for diversity in airline leadership. Young pilots saw her promotion as evidence that the highest levels of the industry were finally becoming accessible to people like them. In her new office overlooking the runways at Chicago O'Hare, Sarah kept several mementos from her flying career. A photo of her first solo flight, her original pilot's license, and letters from scholarship recipients served as reminders of the journey that had brought her to this position. On the wall hung her father's words translated into English. "Dreams take flight when courage provides the wings." Looking out at the aircraft taking off and landing throughout the day, Sarah watched a new generation of pilots beginning their own journeys. Many were women and minorities who might never have considered aviation careers without the path she had helped to clear. The little girl who had once been told that the sky was not for people like her had not only reached the heavens but had also built a ladder for others to follow. Sarah's story had become more than a personal triumph. It was a testament to the power of persistence, excellence, and the courage to pursue seemingly impossible dreams. She had proven that barriers existed only until someone was determined enough to break through them, and that success achieved against all odds could light the way for countless others. In boardrooms and cockpits, in classrooms and conference halls, Captain Sarah Martinez's legacy continued to inspire new dreamers to look up at the sky and see not limits, but endless possibilities.